Halo, at its surface, isn't really a complex game. 500 years into the future, humanity encounters ancient alien artifacts, and is attacked by a religious alien empire known as the Covenant, who want to use these artifacts to wipe out all life in the galaxy. They're smarter than us, stronger than us, have better technology, and basically outclass humanity in every single way. And yet, we still manage to put up a fight, and even eventually beat them. The mainline Halo games star the Master Chief, a character so iconic I don't even think I have to introduce him. The Master Chief is a badass. Anyone who's even played 30 seconds of a Halo game knows that. But his badassery, I don't know if that's a word, but we're rolling with it, his badassery carries more weight than just making him look cool. The Chief represents humanity's fighting spirit, and the idea that no matter how grim or overwhelming a situation may be, as long as you have the will to keep fighting, you can come out on top. He serves as a grand metaphor for human perseverance in general, but also serves as a hero to humanity.
You told me there wouldn't be any cameras.
And you told me you were gonna wear something nice. Folks need heroes, Chief, to give them hope.
See, Chief is a special type of soldier called a Spartan. Spartans, for all intents and purposes, are super soldiers. The process to make Spartans involves thousands of breaches in ethical protocols, such as kidnapping children, making them fight each other, and then drugging the shit out of them. Though the Spartans have an incredibly dark background, they are pretty much the only reason humanity could even stand a chance against the Covenant. This pretty much makes every single Spartan a legend, eventually leading to one of the franchise's most notable slogans, "Spartans never die, they're just until they do." In 2010, Bungie released Halo Reach, which is, and will likely always be, my favorite Halo game. Reach was a very different game tonally from the other entries in the series. Halo has never strayed away from showing darker themes before, but Reach is so different in the sense that from the very beginning, it feels hopeless. Something that directly contradicts the much more optimistic and exciting tone that Halo games are usually known for. For the first time in the series, you play as a Spartan who's not the Master Chief. Instead, you play Noble 6, a Spartan that you can actually customize to your liking. But, contrary to popular belief, he's not just a blank slate for the player to fully insert themselves into. He actually exhibits his own personality, and speaks a lot more than I remember personally. He also ends up making crucial decisions, free of any player intervention. The game begins with Noble 6 being driven to a small outpost where we eventually meet the members of Noble Team, a small team of Spartans tasked with defending planet Reach, a planet similar to Earth that houses humanity's largest colony. Reach's introduction is a lot slower than the other games. It does a good job of building up anticipation, but in a much more mysterious way. The other games always start with a somewhat medium-paced introduction, followed by an immediate jump into the action. But Reach makes sure to give you time to soak in its atmosphere. The first couple missions really let you immerse in the beauty of the planet. It's not bright and colorful like a lot of sci-fi settings try to make their planets, but it's tranquil and peaceful. Shrouded in fog, but not in an overly ominous way. You better take it in now, because it won't look like this for long. Once you arrive at the outpost, you're very briefly introduced to your new team. Carter, the leader, Kat, the technician, George, the heavy weapons expert, Emil, the close quarters specialist, and June, the rifleman. I know Reach gets a lot of criticism for how the members of Noble Team aren't super complex or fleshed out, but I think that's kind of the point. In their introduction, you don't even really talk to them. They just kind of acknowledge the fact that you're there to replace the old Noble 6. Throughout the game, you get small endearing interactions with each of them, which normally wouldn't be enough to keep you invested, but considering how most of your missions further and further into the game become more and more dangerous and borderline suicidal, even the smallest amount of companionship is appreciated. Ultimately, you're a team of soldiers here to do one thing: protect Reach. From what exactly? Well, even though you, the player, likely know the Covenant are going to make their appearance at some point, it's clear that in the context of the story, they currently have no presence on Reach, and likely don't even know of the planet's existence. Your first assignment is to investigate a downed relay outpost, supposedly cutting off Reach's communication from the rest of the colonies. What I love about this is that if you've played the other games, you already know that this is the Covenant. But because the story is treating it like it could be the fault of some local rebels...
So why would rebels want to cut off Reach from the rest of the colonies?
You got a chance, maybe you can ask him, George.
You don't actually know when they'll show up, building some suspense. And if you're new to this series, it's a great way to be introduced to one of the most iconic antagonists in fiction history. As you go through the level, you find some remnants of missing troopers, and it's obvious that this isn't the work of human rebels. It doesn't take long for the threat to reveal itself as the Covenant. But keep in mind, what you're encountering right now is a relatively small amount of Covenant. The Covenant have just discovered Reach, so they don't quite know what they're dealing with, and are slowly scouting and prodding their way around the planet before they launch a full-scale invasion. The key word here being relatively. The amount of opposition you deal with in the first couple missions is by no means a small amount, but compared to what's to come, it's only the tip of the iceberg. It's not until Mission 3 that you see that the Covenant have already developed an invading force while on a recon mission with June. Oh, nice shot of the ass, thank you. Oh! In past games, there's always been some huge move from the Covenant that makes it seem like they're going to demolish us, but it never fully does. Immediately after Mission 3, we launch a full-scale assault on their army, and though it's a tough fight, we've seemed to come out on top as we send in a frigate to destroy one of their spires.
New contact. High turret.
No, somebody tell me this ain't happening.
UNSC frigate Grafton. Do you copy?
Grafton is dust. We need to get out of here now.
I mentioned before that the Covenant have usually struck back in major ways before, but something about this feels different. Our next mission involves infiltrating said cruiser and destroying it, as it's currently the largest threat in the Covenant's invading army.
That thing's crushing us and we're waiting for backup. They'll be backing up a graveyard.
All our nukes are either out system or went down with the ships that carried them. You're preaching to the converted.
Because we're out of nukes, our best bet is to detonate a slip space drive in the ship's hangar. It's a really small detail, but I love how instead of just straight up giving us a nuke, the writers force Noble Team to improvise some type of equally destructive alternative. Bungie could have literally just given us a nuke and the mission would have played out the exact same way, but by them adding this extra context, it shows us how depleted our resources are, and how dire the situation is. The level itself is super straightforward. You hop on a spaceship to go to a bigger spaceship so you can get the spaceship part, and then you go to a purple spaceship so you can blow it up, except there's a problem.
So, it's gonna be like mad. Well, I got good news and bad news. This bird took some fire and her thruster gimbal is toast, which means the only way off this slag heap is gravity.
And the good news?
That was the good news.
At current velocity, 53 seconds to end point.
Yeah. Bad news is, time is fried. I'm gonna have to fire it manually.
That's a one-way trip.
We all make it sooner or later.
With no way to detonate the drive with the timer, George takes it upon himself to detonate it manually, meaning that he'll die in the explosion.
Tell him to make it count.
The heroic sacrifice is a staple in like every story ever, but it's a good staple. George's sacrifice turned the tide for Reach. With the cruiser being the largest threat to the planet, the remaining forces should be able to repel whatever's left.
Slip space rupture detected.
Gamma station control, reading multiple pings below the orbital
Slip
defense
space
grid.
rupture detected.
Yeah, we're picking up anomalies too. Are you reading
Slip
it?
space rupture
Multiple
detected.
Covenant signatures.
Slip space
Is anyone
rupture
else?
detected.
They're everywhere!
Slip space
Yeah,
rupture
fucking
detected.
the whole damn Covenant
Slip
fleet.
space rupture detected.
When a hero sacrifices themselves, it's a leap of faith. The belief that their death is for the greater good. But with George, his death should have been what ultimately led to humanity pushing the Covenant off Reach. He died fully believing that he was saving the planet, but it ultimately amounted to nothing, when at least 12 cruisers come to take the place of the one he died to destroy. I remember when I first played the game as a wee little lad, my brain was so focused on the immediate threat of the other cruisers teleporting in, that I didn't even think about what George's death meant, up until now. We've had hard-fought victories, typical of a Halo game, but with the end of this mission and the start of the next, it's slowly becoming obvious that the story doesn't have a happy ending. Before, our goal was to defend and protect Reach from the invading Covenant force, but now it's to evacuate as many people off the planet as we can. You start off completely separated from your team in the next mission, working with whatever local forces are still in the city. Reach is one of the only Halo games that takes place entirely in a human-populated environment, with the other mainline games focusing primarily on the Halo rings or other alien locations. Seeing places like nightclubs, hospitals, and city streets riddled with nothing but plasma burns and corpses is haunting, to say the least. Halo 3 ODST did a similar thing with the ruins of New Mombasa.
Take my advice, rookie. You ever fall for a woman? Make sure she's got balls.
But that game mostly took place after the damage had already been done. In Reach, you're watching the massacre happen in front of your eyes. Eventually, you do regroup with your team, but even then it's only through communication. You're tasked with destroying some Covenant jammers so that way you can establish a connection to command. These missions do a really good job of selling that feeling of isolation. You're not entirely alone, you have some trusty Marines by your side, but they're not your team. And ultimately they're just random faces that you'll likely forget as soon as they hit the dirt. Like I said earlier, Noble Team isn't full of the most colorful characters, but there is a sense of unity and trust you build with them throughout the earlier missions, and now that you're away from them, you really do feel their absence. Eventually, you bring down the jammers and make it back to your team. It's apparent how exhausted everyone is, especially Carter and Kat.
Sir, that true about Gauntlet Red and Echo teams assigned to civilian evac ops?
Those are senior level communiques.
I hear what I hear. Point is, why put Spartans on defensive deployments?
I need that link to SATCOM, Kat.
Chasing it. But this console's got more shrapnel in it than transceivers. You didn't answer my question.
You want to know if we're losing?
I know we're losing. I want to know if we've lost.
Kat's little comment about knowing that we're losing but wanting to know if we've fully lost is fucking, I don't know, man, soul-crushing. There's also the side comment about other Spartan teams being deployed to defensive positions and assignments when Spartans are usually best used offensively. If our most powerful offensive force is being used defensively, it means the Covenant have us in a position where we can't act offensively, which isn't good, to say the least. Colonel Holland, one of our commanding officers, then makes the unwise but utterly desperate decision to have Noble Team communicate with him through an open comm channel, meaning there's little to no security on the frequency, and the Covenant could easily track the call to their location. Man, if I had like a NordVPN sponsor, I could have made such a smooth transition into that. Please like and subscribe, so that I can fulfill my dreams of making seamless ad reads. June then immediately takes notice of the Covenant beginning to pull out of the city.
We got movement. Multiple Covenant vehicles vacating the area. And they're in a hurry.
Which is unsettling, because why would an enemy that's winning suddenly just decide to drop everything and run?
How close?
That close!
The Covenant have begun glassing the city. Glassing is basically a slang term for plasma bombardment, which means the entire surface of Reach is going to be slowly melted, as a way of ensuring that there are no remaining survivors. The Covenant now have complete control over the planet, which in turn means that Reach is a lost cause. You can even see how taken aback Kat is. In the elevator, she initially misses the button and has to do a quick double take. It's incredibly disheartening to see that what's happening to Reach is so catastrophic that even war-torn Spartans are being thrown off by it. While heading down, Carter informs us that our orders are to revisit Sword Base, an Oni intelligence office, and destroy it to make sure the Covenant can't harvest anything from it.
Data for falling into enemy hands.
It hasn't already.
Maybe, but according to Holland, the Covenant are still hunting for something.
Where does he get off calling a demolition a priority one?
Come on, get in!
Let's go! Come on!
When I was younger, I remember seeing those subtitles at the bottom of the screen and thinking they were some kind of spooky glitch, since there's no way to actually hear any of those lines being spoken. But now that I'm older, I understand that they're intentional, and infinitely more unsettling when they're just being read. Keep in mind, the bunker we were running towards had a couple of civilians hiding in it. Spartans are legends to the public, the mythical super soldiers that keep them safe from the Covenant. So imagine being a resident of the city, watching your home be completely torn apart, seeing 5 living legends in front of you, only for one to be shot down with no warning, while the others desperately try to get to safety, just like you. Something you probably picked up on already, but Reach likes to use lightly animated concept art for some of its backdrops. The blue smoke from the flare contrasting sharply with the burning city and orange sky in the background. It parallels an earlier scene with the burning Covenant ship resting upon a cool gray and blue mountain with a dark sky. These scenes really are a sight to behold, but it's a beauty stemmed from destruction. It's artistic decisions like this that can keep a decade-old game still looking amazing 13 years after its release, and it's such a unique way to juxtapose the elegance of what we're looking at with the horror behind what it represents. I think now is a good time to talk about the music for Halo Reach. Composed by Martin O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore, the soundtrack is still regarded as one of the best to ever exist. Other Halo soundtracks are fantastic at encapsulating that feeling of being a legend. It feels like almost every track is there to make you feel powerful, and it does. Reach's soundtracks always felt more like you were marching to battle. It sounded a lot more like other tracks you hear from other movies or games about soldiers in a war, but not in a generic way. It still managed to generate energy, but in a way that made you feel like you were a part of something rather than being a one-man army. As things begin to take a turn for the worse, the soundtrack takes a much more somber tone, with each track managing to capture that haunting feeling of something ending. They still manage to mix in enough energy to get you pumped, but there's also this distant feeling of an impending doom that never fully goes away. Like Carter said prior, our next mission is to burn down Sword Base. In his briefing, you can hear how tired he is.
Noble 1, this is Noble Actual. Noble 1, go ahead. We need that base taken out, son. What's your status? Still outside. Thermal on the interior shows standing room only. We're gonna have to thin them out or we'll be way too popular. Copy that, Noble 1. Holland out.
Carter was always able to deliver his orders calmly and with confidence, even if he was skeptical about a plan. But here, he's losing his composure, and it's completely understandable. Halfway through the mission, we get a new assignment. We meet with Dr. Halsey, a key player in the Halo universe. We've actually met her before, but I left that out as it wasn't super relevant at the time. More importantly, we meet Cortana. Cortana is the Master Chief's main companion in the mainline games. She's an incredibly advanced AI who can navigate all kinds of technology, and it's her partnership with the Chief that ultimately pushes back the Covenant and saves humanity. But that hasn't happened yet. Right now, to us, she serves more as a representation of something. Hope. It's clear that the fight for Reach is over. Everything we're doing now is damage control, but Halsey claims that the information stored in Cortana is crucial to giving the rest of humanity a fighting chance against the Covenant. Cortana herself has chosen Noble Team, more specifically Noble 6, to escort her off planet, which is now our #1 priority. Before we depart for the Pillar of Autumn, the ship from the very first Halo game, June is assigned to escort Dr. Halsey.
Dr. Halsey, Noble 3 will escort you to Castle Base.
I require no escort, Commander.
June, make sure nothing falls into enemy hands.
I'll do what's necessary, sir. Good luck.
You too, Rifleman.
With June's departure, the last 3 remaining members of Noble Team head towards their final mission. Things are already off to a bad start. Our Pelican is being chased by some Banshees, and Carter has sustained serious damage. The only way we're going to make it to the Autumn is on foot. Carter flies off to distract the Banshees and any other airborne forces. We fight our way through the canyon until we encounter a Scarab.
You've got a mother situation.
Now, if we were the Master Chief, this Scarab would be another tally on the kill count. But we're not.
Commander, you don't have the firepower.
I've got the mask.
Solid copy. Hit 'em on, boys.
You're on your own, Noble. Carter out.
Crevice to the east. Let's go.
And with that, the last 2 remaining members of Noble Team push forward. I just want to say, I know a lot of people were mad initially that the Scarabs weren't actual fights in Halo Reach, and were used more as environmental hazards, but I think it adds to the desperation of the situation. We didn't have the means to fight them, so we just had to stay out of their way until one directly confronted us, and even then, the only way to get through was for Carter to ram his ship into it at full speed, possibly not even killing it, just knocking it out of the way. We continue until we make it to the dry dock. Emil jumps on a Mac cannon and shoots down as many Covenant ships as he can, paving the way for Captain Keyes from the first Halo game. Once the area is clear, Keyes takes Cortana and prepares to extract us as well, but we're ambushed by a Phantom.
Who's next? I'm ready! How about you?
I remember my heart dropping at this scene. I knew Emil was dead, but there was still just the tiniest part of me hoping he'd be up there injured or something, but you don't recover from having a sword shoved through you. After witnessing Emil's death, Six knows that if nobody is there to man the cannon, the Pillar of Autumn will be gunned down, and all of this would be for nothing. And so, Six decides to stay behind. After fighting your way to the cannon, you shoot down as many Phantoms and Banshees as you can. Off in the distance, you can see how ruined the planet has become. Explosions and burning cities off in the horizon, what seems like thousands of different Covenant ships flying towards you, and scarabs slowly marching through the ruins of a once thriving planet. As you take down more ships, a cruiser begins to crawl towards the Autumn. You shoot it out of the sky, causing it to fall not too far from you.
Good, but all stations brace for cast-off.
The Autumn finally launches into space, carrying Cortana and the Master Chief, humanity's last hope. It's one of the most bittersweet scenes I've ever witnessed, as the Autumn's clean gray exterior and bright blue engines contrast heavily with Reach's dark apocalyptic background. You're eventually only able to see the light of the Autumn's engine flying off in the distance before it fully fades out. It represents hope, a light in the darkness, and while it's left to Reach, it's still out there. But what should be a triumphant moment is quickly replaced with the realization that Six is alone, stranded on a dying planet. I know that the current objective survive thing has kind of become a meme in recent years, but back then, seeing that gave me a sinking feeling in my stomach. I remember when I was younger, I couldn't process that a story was willing to kill off its protagonist, especially when that protagonist was you. I held on to hope, believing that some kind of reinforcement or evac ship or something would come rescue us. But as that first crack appears in Six's helmet, that denial faded, and I finally understood how this story had to end. Six's last stand reminded me a lot of George's death in a way. George died believing that Reach would be safe because of his sacrifice. Ironically and tragically, his death ensured nothing. Six, on the other hand, has no idea if his sacrifice will even matter. It was a gamble, a desperate act of hope. We, the player, know that his actions basically gave way for the entire future of Halo, but he doesn't. A hero who sacrifices themselves never gets to see the fruits of their labor. They'll never know if the day was saved, but despite that, they're willing to take that leap of faith because they believe. Maybe it's belief in the people they'll leave behind, belief in some vague cosmic justice, or maybe it's the belief that no matter how dire things seem, all it takes is one small act of selflessness and courage to turn everything around. Unlike the other Halo games, Reach isn't about overcoming insurmountable odds and being deemed a legend for doing so. It's about the reality that sometimes you can't come out on top, but just because you're losing doesn't mean you've lost. In a lot of ways, Reach subverted many of the common elements of the original Halo games' story, but in its own unique way, it managed to retain those ideas about our perseverance. Rather than highlight humanity's indomitable spirit, it shows us humanity's ability to believe, no matter how dire things may seem. And it's that trait of humanity that makes us unbeatable. Reach was brutal. Oh my god, why did I think that was a smart idea? Things went from bad to apocalyptic in a matter of days, but despite that, we fought. Through all the hardships, the losses, the sheer hopelessness, and ultimately, we fought to the bitter end. We fought because even though the odds were stacked against us in every way, we believed that there was still hope. It might have been difficult to feel or see, but it was still there, and that tiny microscopic amount of hope was all we needed to keep pushing forward. And even though we didn't get to live to see it, it did pay off. Reach will always be my favorite Halo game. It's grounded, it's violent, it's harsh, but it's not a story about losing. It's about our ability to find hope, even when there seemingly isn't any to be found. With the state of the world right now, it's hard not to feel a little hopeless. But I do truly believe that things can be better. I believe that there's a better future for all of us. Maybe it'll come tomorrow, or next month, or next year, or in the next 10 years, or maybe it'll happen long after you and me are already gone. But I do believe that it's out there, and I hope you can believe that too.
So that's our new number 6.
Not gonna lie to you, Lieutenant. You're stepping into some shoes the rest of the squad would rather leave unfilled. Just one thing, I've seen your file, even the parts the ONI censors didn't want me to. I'm glad to have your skill set. But we're a team. That lone wolf stuff stays behind. Clear? Got it, sir.
What's the status? Over!
We've been engaged! Bad guy coming out!
Colonel, this is Noble 1. There are no rebels. The Covenant are on Reach. Acknowledge?
Found something.
I'll take that, Six. Not your domain.
Here, you may need these. High velocity, armor piercing. They'll take the hat off an elite at 2,000 yards. And they ain't cheap. Jackpot. Transmitting visual. You've seen this cat?
Confirmed. Receiving Nova 3 and Nova 6 live visual of a Covenant strike force.
It's no strike force, it's an invading army. If we're gonna smother this thing, we need to go in hard and fast.
Six! Can you hear me? Six, you alright? I could use some help.
On my way.
New contact. High tonnage.
No, somebody tell me this ain't happening.
UNSC frigate Grafton. Do you copy?
Grafton is dust. We need to get out of here now.
Better get going, Six. They're gonna need you down there. Tell them to make it count.
Slip space rupture detected.
Gamma station control, reading multiple pings below the orbital defense
Slip
grid.
space rupture detected.
Yeah, we're picking up anomalies too. Are you reading
Slip
it?
space rupture detected.
Multiple Covenant signatures.
Slip space
Does anyone have
rupture
a visual?
detected.
They're everywhere!
Slip space
Yeah,
rupture
must be
detected.
the whole damn Covenant
Slip
fleet.
space rupture detected.
Look at this place. Used to be the crown jewel. Not anymore.
It's good to have you back. Sorry I came alone. Make him proud.
You didn't answer my question.
You want to know if we're losing?
I know we're losing. I want to know if we've lost.
Commander, you've been wondering what your Spartans died
We're
for?
still hunting for something.
Where does he get off calling a demolition a priority one?
They died for this.
Do you have it?
Yes,
Say the words, please.
I have it.
6! That AI chose you. She made the right choice.
Good to see you, Spartan. Halsey assured me I could count on you.
Not just me, sir.
Who's next? I'm ready! How about you?
Tenant, get aboard! We gotta get the hell out of here!
Negative. I have the gun. Good luck, sir.
Good luck to you, Spartan.
It didn't take long for Reach to fall. Our enemy was ruthless, efficient, but they weren't nearly fast enough. For you had already passed the torch, and because of you, we found Halo, unlocked its secrets, shattered our enemy's resolve. Our victory, your victory, was so close. I wish you could have lived to see it. But you belong to Reach. Your body, your armor, all burned and turned to glass. Everything. Except your courage. That you gave to us. And with it, we can rebuild.